A third pushed through a kitchen door in Plymouth and bit a 7-month-old sitting in her bouncer in the kitchen. Nobody knows for sure why foxes are entering so many homes, but one thing nobody disagrees about is this. In the last couple of decades, people are encountering many more foxes in their daily lives. Their pointed faces are everywhere, poking their noses into rubbish bins, darting through hedgerows, and walking jauntily along the tops of garden walls. Emboldened foxes and fjords full of whales tell us something. Amid a crushing wave of bad news, a handful of wildlife species have bounced back. The recoveries create glimmers of hope and bring complicated challenges. What they show about animals and their tenacity is inspiring. What they demand from minds unaccustomed to their presence is where some of the deepest puzzles lie. We need, in short, a new way to think about animals. The news about animals is bleak. Wildlife populations have declined 20% over the last century. More than 900 species have been wiped off the face of the earth since industrialization. At least 1 million are threatened with extinction, many of which now number less than 1,000. Vertebrates are particularly hard hit, with populations plummeting over 60% since 1970. Birds in North America are down 29%. More than 40% of amphibians and 1/3 of ocean corals are in danger. The collapse is almost certain to get worse. Nearly 3/4 of ice-free land and 2/3 of the oceans have been transformed by human activities. 70% of the world's fresh water is devoted to crop and livestock production. Soil is eroding 100 times faster than it is being built. The signs of human dominance are everywhere. 96% of the weight of the world's mammalian life is either human or domestic animals. Let that sink in. People and their livestock weigh 24 times all the elephants, whales, and tigers combined. Climate change is adding to the problems. Temperatures on land have risen 1.59 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, climbing more at high latitudes. 50% of Australia's Great Barrier Reef dies back each summer due to coral bleaching, a number that's only going to increase. Barely 7% of ocean fish stocks are harvested at sustainable rates, and marine waters are becoming warmer and more acidic. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change predicts that only a few years are left before many low-lying island nations, together with the biodiversity they support, will sink beneath the waves. And yet, despite the grim outlook for wildlife and despite the relentless stream of bad news, some animal populations are on the rebound. Humpback whales in the western Indian Ocean have surged from 600 in the middle of the last century to over 30,000 today. Black bears in California have quadrupled in a few decades. Storks are breeding in southern England for the first time since the Middle Ages. Wolves now number more than 12,000 in Europe, and their range has expanded into densely populated countries, including the Netherlands and Belgium, where they have been absent for a century. None of this should be happening. With such a dire outlook for wildlife, how is any of this possible? The chapters ahead probe the mystery by looking at a number of wildlife recoveries. Each section tracks one or more animals and reveals how their numbers have bucked the larger trend. It asks how things can go so right when so much is going so wrong. The focus is mainly on species in the United States and Europe, because these are places I know best. One is the continent on which I grew up. The other is the continent on which I am growing old. I don't claim anything I say about animal recoveries is unique to these locations. I'm confident the lessons are available elsewhere. There are probably clearer or more illuminating cases to explore. But I focus on where I have lived and worked, for these are the places most familiar to me and where my affections are most fierce. The recoveries are not hard to spot. Roe deer rutting in the forest where I grew up in southern England. Pronghorn antelope trotting west of the Continental Divide near my home in Montana. Sea-bound trout flicking their tails past dismantled dams in Washington state. Bears crunching acorns in Italy's Apennines. When you scratch the surface and turn a few stones, you find animals everywhere, waiting for a chance to return. Highlighting the recoveries is not to question the established wisdom about species loss. The truth cannot be doubted. For every success, there are 10 cases of continuing decline. Enormous challenge.